Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Retrotopia. This is Sam, and I'm going Han Solo this week to talk about some Star Wars games. But first, let's talk about some quick plugs. We have a Linktree, linktr.ee/Retrotopia. Discord merch page is there, all of our socials. Thanks to our Patreons, and thanks to our newest patron, Raging Demon. Welcome, buddy. We'll get some more fighting games in here for you. Let's keep the plugs quick because I know what you're here for. Let's get to the top 5 Star Wars games that I have played and the top 5 that I have yet to play. Yeah, there's not much else to be said here. I'm obviously a huge Star Wars fan. I've been itching to talk the wars on this podcast for a long time. And what better way to start than to talk about some of my favorite games? So you get like a little bit of a, I don't know, what do you call that? Smorgasbord. There we go. It's a cheese platter. It's a cheese platter of my favorite Star Wars games. So you get little mini reviews of all of them. And hopefully more than one of these will get a future episode of the show proper. But first, let's get some listener comments in here. We got a few write-ins. Some of them will be sprinkled in. So if you don't hear your comment read right up top, it's because the game that you were talking about specifically matches one of mine somewhere down the line, and I wanted to sprinkle them in as I was talking. So let's start with Blue Yoshi 94, who says, I've played Angry Birds Star Wars 1 and 2. Does that count? Yes, it does. Angry Birds Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, those games are fun in their own way. I played plenty of, I got really excited. I loved Angry Birds, and I loved Angry Birds Space way back in the day on mobile. Yeah, and then once the Star Wars one came out, I was like, oh, game over. This is awesome. So I played plenty of Angry Birds Star Wars. Sergeant Ombre says, hello, Mr. Sam Beagle, assuming that's your last name. Yeah, might as well be. If you were recommending a book or book series to read and potentially talk about, what would you recommend someone to start with? This is a great question, as I have an extensive collection of EU materials and novels behind me here. I'd say probably, man, there's a lot of places you could possibly start. You know what's a really fun one? If you want just like a quick light read, is Splinter of the Mind's Eye. That was the first quote-unquote expanded universe novel. It came out in the late 70s before Empire Strikes Back was released in theaters. So I think it was kind of hot on the heels of Star Wars, as it was called then. Now it's Episode 4, A New Hope, but the Star Wars. It's interesting because basically this serves as a sequel to Star Wars when we didn't really know, there was going to be another movie. So that's kind of an interesting one. I'd also suggest Shadows of the Empire. That's a standalone novel, but there's also obviously a video game that goes along with it, and the comic book series from Dark Horse. That's a great one. Really great EU vibes, just right in that Empire Strikes Back era of Star Wars, and I love it. That's a great one. The Thrawn trilogy, that first original Thrawn trilogy that's now Legends, that's a great one. And I'd say the X-Wing series is really, really good too. I really enjoyed the X-Wing series. And the X-Wing series, timeline-wise, actually expands like way, way far into the future. So if you read all of them, you end with this book called Mercy Kill, which is basically almost the very end of the Legends timeline, the original Legends timeline. So it stretches far beyond like the New Republic and stuff like that, New Jedi Order and all that stuff. So that's a good series. So there's a bunch there. Also, Marvel Unlimited is a really good deal for not only if you're a comics fan for superhero stuff, but they have a lot of tie-in materials like Alien, Planet of the Apes, that kind of stuff. And they have the whole original Marvel Star Wars run from the 70s and 80s, and then also all of that Dark Horse stuff from the 90s got licensed over to Marvel once. I think Dark Horse went under, but and Marvel had reacquired those, the license and everything. And then with the Disney acquisition, the circle is complete. And and everything just is on Marvel Unlimited. It's perfect. So there's new comics, there's old Legends comics, there's all kinds of stuff. Also, one more. I mean, I read a ton, so this is right in my wheelhouse. There's the Tales books. There's a few of them. I would suggest Tales of the Bounty Hunters is great, and Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina are really fun. And then there's a Jabba's Palace one too. But basically, like any scene where there's like all kinds of like just like a panning shot of a bunch of weird aliens, it just gives a name and tells a backstory to like a bunch of them, and those are really fun. Short stories, quick to read. Those are great. So that was an awesome question. Thank you. Next, The Big Deal says, I'm not a Star Wars guy, and the only Star Wars game I've played, and my default, the two sweetest words in the English language, is number one, is The Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 2600. Funny you should mention that, because that was one of the first video games I remember playing as a child. So, yeah, that's certainly a video game that existed. There's not really much to it. But there's a quick play review of that back in the archives. That was one of the first quick plays I did, I think, because it was one of the first video games I played, and I wanted to talk about it. So that's a fun one. Good, great comment. I love that. And then Mr. Hooley, since you mentioned a bunch of games, I threw your comment up front. Some of these may be mentioned in the top or top fives, one of the top fives. So, Mr. Hooley says Fallen Order and Survivor has to be the best two, in my opinion, but I've never played KOTOR. Shout out to Episode 1 Racer. That game is always fun to go back to. That's true. Episode 1 Racer is a lot of fun, and KOTOR is interesting. We'll see if that comes up at all, but I would suggest playing it. The story itself is great. So, and there's a lot to it. If you enjoy that style of game, yes, KOTOR is a great one to play. Let's go, before we get into the top fives, let's go through some honorable mentions. We got some games that I've played a lot of Star Wars games, obviously. There's a lot that I haven't played. And then there's a lot of ones I played as a younger kid that I never finished or just didn't, just kind of fucked around with, especially as a young kid, like you're not finishing games then. Well, maybe some of you are, if you're, whatever. I wasn't. So I want to give a shout out to Shadows of the Empire. I have really fond memories of this game and this era in Star Wars specifically. The mid to late 90s, I'd say, like 97. I mean, the Nintendo 64 was being released, and Shadows of the Empire was an early N64 game. The special editions were coming out in theaters and then, on VHS or DVD, whatever. So the movies were back in the theaters. There were toys everywhere. The novels were hot, the everything. And Shadows of the Empire was a multimedia kind of project, I guess, in Star Wars, where they had the novel, the Shadows of the Empire novel, which I mentioned for Sergeant Ombre's question. They had the video game, and then they had comic book series and toys and all kinds of tie-ins. So Shadows of the Empire is great and has a special place in my heart. I've never finished the game. I know it can be quite difficult towards the end, and just maybe quite difficult in general, because that 3D style on the early 64 doesn't always hold up. And, like early 3D on the PlayStation, you could say that for anything. But I don't know. I'm excited to get into the adventures of Dash Rendar. I found a copy, a really nice copy, at my local shop. So I'll be playing it at some point. And then the next one is Rebel Assault. This was an old PC game from the early 90s, LucasArts game. It's a rail shooter, and it's one of the first games I played on the family computer we had, and was really big into getting me into Star Wars. It was like right when I was getting into Star Wars in like 94, 95. And then we had this game on the computer, and I played the shit out of it. I was terrible, but I still played it. You start with the T-16, like how Luke says that he shoots womp rats with his T-16. Well, you get to actually fly the Beggar's Canyon run with his little T-16 Skyhopper, and It's fucking hard. I don't know if I'd still consider it hard, but like we had it hooked up to a joystick and everything, and I would try to play it, and I think I actually beat it, at least the Beggar's Canyon run once, and then you end up with a level that's of course even harder. So I didn't get past that one, but that's a fun one. I'd like to go back to it and finish it someday if I can get it running on a PC, but yeah, that's another one. Rebel Assault, and then there was a Rebel Assault 2. So that's a very formative game for me. So let's get into this top 5. We're gonna kick it off with obviously number 5. Well, actually, I should mention we're gonna start off with the top 5 games that I've played, and then we'll go through the top 5 games that I've yet to play. I think that's probably the best way to do this. I think the discussion will be a little bit meatier in the top 5 that I've played. Obviously, I'll have more to say about those, but I'll show some justification and reasoning behind why I want to play some of these ones in the other top 5. So let's get started with the number 5 Star Wars game that I've ever played. Okay, coming in at number 5 is Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles for the PlayStation. This game is a sentimental favorite for me. I was all in, obviously, on Star Wars as a kid, and I remember, like, who doesn't remember the fucking hype for Episode 1? We were all so just absolutely jacked for this movie, whether you like it or not. The movie and this game, I think, are sentimental favorites for me. This was a great time in my life and in my childhood. I think if I had to pick one year, I think like the 96 through like 2001, like right before obviously 9/11, like those were the best childhood years for me. I think, Star Wars was popping. Obviously you had your pop punk revolution. Everything was great. Yeah, so this fits right in there. Not that Star Wars has anything to do with pop punk, but yeah, Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles. This is one of the many examples of my dad doing some research and getting me the quote-unquote better version of what I had asked for, like for my birthday or Christmas or something. And I have to say, he was usually right. Famously, like the first example was a Sega when I wanted a Super Nintendo. And then when I got an N64, it was I asked for Mario Kart because I loved playing that, and I got Diddy Kong Racing, and I fucking love that game. And this was I think at this time I had wanted the movie tie-in game because I remember those were big for a long time in not only Star Wars but pretty much any big blockbuster movie had, you had the soundtrack and then you had the movie tie-in video game and novelization. It's just like bombarded with merch for stuff. But yeah, I think he had talked to the clerk at the game store, and they were like, yeah, if your kid likes Star Wars and is excited about Episode 1, this is the better game. And they're right. I mean, I don't think anyone talks about that Episode 1 game now. But Jedi Power Battles does get some love and has gotten a remaster. So you play through 10 levels that loosely follow the story of Episode 1, and you can pick one of 5 Jedi, which was fucking cool, because really you only see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn in action in Episode 1, but here you get Adi Gallia, Plo Koon, and Mace Windu. And Mace Windu fucking rules, and so does Plo Koon. Adi Gallia is fine. She has that kind of like... I don't know what you call that. There's like names for all the lightsaber stances. I'm not that big of a nerd where I know what they all are, but she holds it like backhanded almost. So that's pretty cool. She's like a quick player or a quick character. And then you get cool environments right out of the movie. Like you get to go through the Trade Federation starship, like in the opening scene. You get the swamp, city, and palace in Naboo. You get Tatooine. Coruscant, which, I mean, you saw Coruscant a bit in Episode 1, but here you get like a lot of course. You're like hopping rooftops and fighting bounty hunters. It's pretty sweet. Each player played a bit differently. So I think Obi-Wan was kind of the all-around. Plo Koon and Mace were a little bit slower, but they had more powerful attack. Excuse me. Adi Gallia, like I said, was pretty fast, but I think she was a little was a little weaker defensively. And then Qui-Gon had like healing power or something like that. Like he basically like healing items would have more effect or something like that. So he didn't do as much damage, but you could kind of heal a little faster with Qui-Gon. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's kind of a 3D beat 'em up in that sense. I covered this game with Blaine and Sam over on Retro Ridas, so go check that out. That was a fun episode. It got a remaster recently. I played it on Steam Deck. It was fucking terrible. It crashes all the time. But I saw news on my Steam Deck that there was a big update for it, so it might be better now. It might be worth checking out. But if you have a PlayStation or PS2 laying around and you find a copy of this game, I don't think it would be that much on the after collector's market. This is a great game. So that's coming in at number 5. Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. All right, on to number 4. All right, number 4 on my list is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Some of you with, obviously knowing how much I love RPGs, some of you might think that this is a little low on my list, but I'll get into why. I do like this game, but I don't love it as much as a lot of people do. But before we get into my thoughts on this, let's go to Game Genius, who says he's got a big long comment here. So buckle up. All right. All-time best Star Wars game, hands down, is Knights of the Old Republic. They may be dated, but the morality system, RPG elements, the equipment assembling and upgrading, and let's not forget the minigames. Pazak and swoop bike racing. Love it. Then, close second is The Force Unleashed. When you pull that Star Destroyer out of orbit and really show Starkiller's true strength, makes me wonder why they never did that in the movies or shows. Love it. All right. Ooh, Force Unleashed was in there. I didn't catch that at first. Ooh, whoops. Maybe we'll talk about that one later. We'll see. And shout out to that Vader scene at the end of Rogue One. That is how Vader was, and they never truly showed how powerful he was because of special effects technology of the day. Love Star Wars. Love you guys, and keep making the awesome work. Thank you. Thank you, Game Genius. That was a really nice comment. Yes. Vader in Rogue One is just a fucking badass. I don't know if you've ever looked, but they've made fan edits of like the Obi-Wan Vader saber duel in Star Wars: A New Hope, which is obviously very slow because it was the first Star Wars movie, and Alec Guinness wasn't going to be doing backflips or anything. But that's kind of fun. It would be cool to see an edit, like a full edit of a Star Wars movie with like enhanced lightsaber scenes from the saber duels in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi aren't bad, but like in the first movie they really were trying to figure everything out. But yeah, just seeing Vader in his true form, doing what Vader does is pretty fucking cool. And you see it in Rogue One. Anyways, to talk about Knights of the Old Republic, I didn't play this game when it first came out. I didn't have an original Xbox, and that's what KOTOR came out on. So I played the Switch port a couple of years ago. So that was I don't know if it was touched up or remastered or just ported, but Aspire Studios did that. So they do a lot of they do a lot of remasters, a lot of I don't want to call them remakes, but they do a lot of like up-resed remasters, including I believe the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer and Jedi Power Battles games. I had not played this style of RPG before. I had heard it was an RPG. I was real excited about it being an RPG, but it's, I guess you call it a Western RPG or more of a like D&D style RPG where I guess events are happening more or less in real time. It's not exactly turn-based, and the you have a range of outcome that you can have from your attacks. Like damage will be, like, let's say like 1 to 6 or something like that. And it's basically run off of like D&D dice rolls that are going on in the background. So you don't actually see the outcomes. They just kind of pop up in real time. So I had a real hard time getting into this one because I'm more of the JRPG turn-based style gameplay is what I prefer. But I'd have to give this and games like it another shot, because I think if I could give it another chance, knowing what I know now and kind of, having the feel for how the game works, I think I'd really enjoy it more. I think the Dragon Age games are like this too, if I'm not mistaken, although I've never played one. And what Mass Effect, I believe, is like this too. So Mass Effect, certainly I'll be playing at some point in the future, and I will go back to KOTOR at some point, because I think I'd like to give it another shot. And it has a sequel that I haven't played before. I know the remaster had some problems at some point, so hopefully that's been resolved at this point. But what really drew me to KOTOR and kept me playing, even though I didn't enjoy the gameplay as much, was the story. And try as I might, I could not get myself to turn to the dark side. I was like, really, like, you know what? I'm gonna be so evil. I'm gonna be so bad, and I just ended up being like as fucking light side as possible. Like nothing. Like my version of like dark side is like, oh, I was an asshole in this conversation or something like that. But if you want to turn to the dark side, you got to steal money. You got to fucking kill members of your own party. Like, I looked up what it takes to like actually do like a full dark side run. And I was like, oh shit, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. You have to like just kill people that are out and about and take their money and steal their shit. So if you do a dark side run, you actually end up with like a lot of credits and can buy pretty much whatever you want. So I guess it pays to be an asshole. Crime pays, right? I also loved exploring some new planets and some old favorites. I think my favorite part of the game was going through like the forest floor of Kashyyyk and fighting like all kinds of creatures down there and helping the Wookiees out. I always love Wookiees are my favorite. Chewbacca's one of my favorite characters, and I just fucking love Wookiees. So just getting to like go through their little treetop villages in Kashyyyk and talk to a bunch of Wookiees was fucking cool. So we'll see more Kashyyyk later in some more of the games we talk about. Weapon and character customization was awesome. You got that right, Game Genius. Getting your lightsaber hilts and different like mods for your lightsaber to do more damage. You could have a lightsaber. You can shoot pistols. You can use all kinds of. There's like different swords and stuff that some of the enemies will drop. There's a lot of variety here. Like I said, battle system took me a while to get used to, because you'd just be like kind of walking around, and all of a sudden it's like you're in a battle and like stuff's attacking you, and it's like, oh shit. And sometimes you're not prepared. Like this game, more than I think a typical RPG, I'd get like ambushed and killed without really being prepared or really knowing that I was in a battle. So we'll see. We'll try it again. But while it's not my favorite, I definitely get it. I get the hype. I get why people love it. So number 4 was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And now on to number 3. All right, number 3 on my list is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. God, this game fucking rules. LucasArts did not need to go this hard for a secondary Episode 1 tie-in. That was nuts. Such a well-made game. This was my F-Zero. Fast, high stakes, so you could blow up. I think the more you blow up, you can actually damage your pod permanently, so it really helped to be good at it. Like Jedi Power Battles, I think this game really cashed in on that episode 1 hype. I think it came out a little bit later. I want to say maybe in 2000, if I'm not mistaken. But man, I played the absolute living shit out of this game on my Nintendo 64. I played this more than Jedi Power Battles. Jedi Power Battles got some teeth and was kind of janky in a way that made it hard for me when I was a kid. Episode 1 Racer, while difficult towards the end, was just like, mwah, it was great. Chef's kiss. Great game. Yeah, just also perfect encapsulation of like EU type, like expanded universe type gameplay or not even storytelling. It's not really a story to this game. You pick a racer and you can pick any of the racers that are in the pod racing scene. But that just goes to show, like I mentioned the Tales of the Bounty Hunters and like Tales of Mos Eisley Cantina, like book series, the Tales series, how they zero in on a specific character. This is the same concept. Like you take all these characters that are just like a panning shot in episode 1 and you create, obviously they all have names, but I mean, you have their name, their likeness, their pod racer is all in there. They're all playable. Sebulba's an unlockable at some point. Their pods all start with different stats, and then as you race and accumulate credits for winning, you can buy parts and upgrade and stuff. There all the screens where you're like going through getting parts, like Watto's like jawing at you to pick out what you want. Man, I mean, aside from the saber duel at the end of episode 1, is the pod race not the most iconic scene? Such a great and such great special effects. I mean, that was all still practical special effects, and that's why I think for all of its detractions, for all of its flaws, I think Star Wars Episode 1 stands among the best of the prequels, just because it was still George Lucas doing George Lucas stuff, which was like Industrial Light and Magic, practical special effects. It looked gorgeous. That scene was fucking awesome. Sound effects were great. It's all the pod racing sound effects and voiceover just lifted right out of the movie. John Williams soundtrack. I mean, it just, I can't believe they fit all of it on an N64 cartridge, to be honest. The iconic sound clip of Anakin when you get your pods working, like it's working. Yeah, that I used to drop that in conversation, me and my friends, as kids. So like, just perfect. No notes. This is a perfect game. This is one of my absolute favorite N64 games. It went fast. I mean, this is a fast game. And I don't know. I could just go on. I don't have anything else that I should cut myself off here. Else I'm going to this is going to be the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer podcast. And this should definitely get an episode of the show. What a fantastic game. Now on to number 2. All right, number 2. If you haven't guessed by the sound clip that I just played, number 2 is Jedi Fallen Order. This is a recent one for me. In a world where we haven't had a goddamn Star Wars movie in a theater since 2019, which is a fucking travesty, this game was absolutely just perfectly cinematic. These types of games, these like grand sweeping adventure games, like Fallen Order, like Survivor. I've yet to play Outlaws. These are supplanting films for us, unfortunately. I mean, we're not getting Star Wars movies right now, so we're going to the novels, digging back into the old EU, watching the TV shows, and stuff like this is just perfect. Like, if you're itching for some great Star Wars stories, Fallen Order is excellent. This was actually one of the primary reasons for me to buy a PS5. I really wanted to play this game and Survivor was coming out around the time that I got my PS5. So it was like Fallen Order and Final Fantasy VII Remake were like the primary games that I wanted to play on PS5. Yeah, and I don't regret it because I've played a lot of good stuff on there since then. But so this is set in the timeline between Episode 3 and the original trilogy, absolutely ripe for stories with wayward Jedi and Padawans being hunted down post Order 66. Just great. Like, there's an infinite number of stories you can tell. You can always just say, like, well, there's a Padawan and he's being chased, or, you know, like, something interesting is going to happen to this force sensitive, I don't know, kid, person, who knows, alien, I don't know. It sounds formulaic, but, you know, there's enough. I mean, it's a almost infinite space universe. I mean, you could do anything with these kinds of stories. The story just kept me engaged, I think, in this one. I'd hear criticism of the Inquisitors and their disposability sometimes, where, you know, you see them in Rebels. I think they turn up in the Obi-Wan and the Ahsoka series and stuff like that. In Ahsoka? No, not in Ahsoka. That's post. Definitely Obi-Wan, there's Inquisitors, and in Rebels, and in Bad Batch, I believe, as well. It's been a while since I watched Bad Batch. Anyways, stay the course. Inquisitors. Inquisitors are kind of your main antagonist in Jedi Fallen Order, and I disagree with criticism of the Inquisitors. I like the Inquisitors. I like this idea that the Empire captures and tortures former Jedi, you know, former Padawans, force sensitives, and just uses them to hunt down remaining Jedi. Like, they're just like twisted and manipulated and brainwashed into, you know, doing the Empire's bidding. And they're formidable too. I mean, so some of the, obviously, I don't want to say some of the hardest boss battles in this game are Inquisitors. There's a few of them that you fight. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because I have played this game, and the Inquisitors are very imposing. I'd say this game is just about nearly perfect. Story-wise, for sure, but I found some of the gameplay mechanics a little janky. I do like that it is kind of a... I don't want to throw this word around too much, but it's kind of a Metroidvania. You do gain abilities that'll allow you to explore different parts of the maps, and the maps, there's like a 3D projection of a map that your little droid BD1, who's fucking awesome, by the way. If I could find, if they still make that Lego BD1, I would get that in a heartbeat. BD1 is awesome. But yeah, you explore the maps, and they give you a percentage of the maps on each, you know, planet that you can go to that you've explored, and you can go back to, you know, different planets. You can planet hop and go back and explore more of the map that's unlockable once you've gained more abilities. So yeah, I guess you could call it a Metroidvania. So the platforming is a little bit goofy, and I've found this in other EA games too. So EA makes this game. I've also played It Takes Two, I believe, is an EA game, and what's the other one? Split Fiction. Sometimes I find that the platforming isn't the greatest in these games, and I don't know if it's the same studio even. So maybe my criticism is moot, and it's just me sucking. But I don't know. Sometimes you make a jump and you're like, I totally made that, and he just falls or whatever. I don't know. Or the wall runs are kind of tough to pull off sometimes. But other than that, it's a really good game. This is the kind of Star Wars game that I think they should be making more of. And I realize that there's a ton of work and writing and voice acting and composing and everything that goes into this. But if you're not making movies, make video games like this. These are awesome. We don't want another MMO or another free-to-play online fucking bullshit like they made the Bounty Hunters game, and I don't know if that's been doing well or anything. But, you know, that stuff comes and goes. Games like this stick around, and people remember them. So yeah, more, please. And I also appreciate, I'll give this a shout too. I really appreciate that games like this can be played in story mode for these. That's for Star Wars fans that maybe aren't big gamers, and there are plenty of them. Even older fans. I listen to a Star Wars podcast, and I know that one of the hosts has played this game, and he sets it on story mode. I mean, it's a more relaxing and easier to play experience, and then you still get all the great story elements and exploration and gameplay and stuff. So, really great game. And maybe we'll see Survivor later. Who knows? But let's get on to my number one. I'm sure you're all waiting patiently for number one. Here's number one. Man, that's not from any specific game, really. I mean, it did come from the soundtrack to this game, but that's one of my favorite soundtrack pieces from any Star Wars movie, the Rebel Assault. And my number one favorite Star Wars game, and quite honestly, one of my favorite games of all time, is Star Wars Battlefront 2 for the PlayStation 2. And we did get a comment on this one from Blaine the Hoagie Man. Blaine says, I remember really enjoying the newer Battlefront 2 on PS4. I didn't get it until after they changed it after all the controversy bullshit, but I always enjoyed playing any of the maps for the prequel and the original trilogies and playing as a destroyer droid or even ripping around in starfighters. Playing as the main characters are cool and using vehicles too. Yes, I agree. I have not played the newer versions of Battlefront 1 and 2. Maybe someday I'll get to it, but I'm always just going to be completely enamored with the original. This also did get a remaster recently. Played a little bit of it. It's pretty good. I think there were some glitch issues that people reported, and I'm sure those have been patched out by now. But I still have I held onto my copy from the PS2 from my college days, and this game is the greatest. I played this so fucking much that I missed out on a lot of other titles for the PS2 in that era, and you know what? I don't regret any of it. It had a story mode that was awesome, that kind of took you through the events of the Clone Wars. I'd say more Episode 3. You're kind of Episode 3 adjacent, and this game came out like, I'd say shortly after Episode 3 released. So this is really that kind of time period of Star Wars. Episode 3 just coming out. And this gives you kind of an alternate story within the Episode 3 timeline up through Order 66 and just beyond that is the story mode playing through as Vader's 501st Legion. And that is a very cool story mode. I love the story mode. But really the meat of the game is in doing galactic conquest, which is where you're planet hopping. So you have all the planets out on a board and you're moving your fleets around. You can play it against a computer or you can play it against another player. The multiplayer was awesome. The split screen multiplayer was the best. But that was what we played the most, me and my buddies. And we spent, I didn't go out and socialize and drink as much in college, probably because I was playing fucking Battlefront. You could get locked into just a head-to-head. Like if you're evenly matched with your opponent, like we were, you just play for hours and hours and barely make any progress. You'd take a planet, lose a planet, take a planet, lose a planet. You'd lose a fleet sometimes. So you can move your fleets over a planet, and then you'd have like a planetary, like space battle over the planet. That was fucking cool. So the main mechanic of the game itself, like a match, I guess, you'd have maps that are, different planets and locales in Star Wars and in the prequel trilogy and in the original trilogy. And you go around and you capture command posts, and once you capture a command post, it belongs to your faction, and you can respawn at any of the command posts that you've taken. So if you lose all the command posts, you can't respawn at all, and it's very likely you would lose, but there is, if you're skilled, you could fight back from having no command posts. You just have to go take one, and then hopefully you can gain a foothold. But I'd say this concept was familiar to me because I had seen early Call of Duty or Medal of Honor games and like multiplayer Quake. I think I remember there being like a command post type or like a capture the flag type, King of the Hill, I think it was called. So yeah, it's kind of like King of the Hill. You're trying to capture and hold a command post and then move on to the next one. There's tons of maps. More so, I mean, I'd put Battlefront and Battlefront 2, the originals, in kind of the same category, but like everything that Battlefront did correctly, Battlefront 2 just did better. So many maps, so many environments, like planets in the movies that you didn't see much of, but you knew were part of the story, like Felucia and Megiddo. You only see brief scenes of those in the movies. You actually get playable maps of those. And in Felucia, there's like those Acklay, those things that they're in episode 2. One of the like creatures that they send to like execute Anakin and Padme. It's like the big like lizard looking thing. Has a really iconic like cry or whatever. But yeah, those are like romping around in Felucia, and they can just fucking kill you immediately. So that's pretty fun. There's a lot of cool. I mean, there's even streets of Tatooine. You can like go through buildings and Tatooine and stuff like that. Places where there weren't even battles in the movies, like what is it? Why I don't know why I can't remember like the names of planets. I can usually whip these off really quick. Camino, where they clone. There's a whole battle on Camino. That one's pretty cool because you get to like go outside in the rain and hop around on all these different platforms and stuff, and then you can go inside and you can see like the interior of the cloning facility. It's pretty rad. You can play as Republic or Separatist in the prequel era, or Rebels and Empire in the original trilogy era. Each faction has a unique troop type. Like the Rebels have a Bothan spy, which again, you don't see that in the movies, but you get to play as one, and they like turn invisible. They're kind of hard to play as, but you get Bothan spies. The Empire has Imperial officers. Separatists, I think you get one of those like Magna droids. And then the Republic has I can't remember. It might be that like chain gun commando guy. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, God, this game is fucking awesome. Not all of the maps could you play both eras, but most maps had the ability you could swap between eras. Space battles were cool. I mean, you could fly all kinds of ships. Like each one had a fast attack, a bomber class, and a like snub fighter version, and then a troop transport. So each faction had one in both eras. And that was pretty cool. So like for example, like the Rebels had like the fast attack A-wing, and then the X-wing obviously, and then the Y-wing was the bomber. Just amazing. One of my favorite games of all time. I could go on and on. This one should also get an episode of the show. Just think of like a game that gives you an infinite sandbox to play with your Star Wars action figures in. I didn't even mention the hero characters. Like I can't remember what sets it off, but it'll pop up on your screen when you're playing, and you have the ability to play as hero characters. So each map and faction will have a specific hero character that will be available. Like Hoth, if you're playing as the Rebels, you get like Pilot Luke. He's got his lightsaber, and they're usually a little faster, have better weapons. They have a limited time, but they can do a lot of damage when they're on the map. So you can use like Luke. You can play as the fucking Emperor. Darth Vader, Jango Fett, I think Grievous, maybe. There's a ton. I mean, it's just I spent so much time on this game, even in single player mode, trying to get all the medals to get all the upgraded weapons. I definitely would go back to this game. I have my copy. I've got my PS2. One of these days, this game is getting an episode. Mark my words. And that's it for my my top 5 Star Wars games that I've played. And if you think I missed one, then you should write into the show and let me know, because I'd love to hear it. But let's turn this. This probably won't be as extensive as a conversation, so we can probably get into these and then wrap things up. But these are my top 5 Star Wars games that are in my backlog, starting with number 5. All right. First of all, no one told me this fucking soundtrack went this hard. Coming in at number 5 is Star Wars Republic Commando. I believe for the PS2, I want to say. The PS2 era for sure. God, that song. Like, this is one of the first, I guess, Star Wars games that had a licensed soundtrack. So you get like rock music, hard rock music. That was that soundtrack is a fucking banger. I love a good FPS, and this looks like one of them. I've dabbled a little bit in this one, but this is one of the many games I missed out on when they were releasing really good Star Wars games in that 2000s era. So I think this came out in 2008. It's set during the Clone Wars, and you play as Delta Squad, which is an elite clone trooper commando squad. Actually, you get to see, I think, the elite, not necessarily Delta Squad, but I think you get to see the clone commandos in, I want to say season 2 or 3 of The Bad Batch, which is an excellent animated show. If you are a fan of Clone Wars, you should definitely be watching Bad Batch. That is a fantastic show. I played a tiny bit of this, and you start on the Battle of Geonosis in episode 2. So it looks like it just like in Battlefront, it kind of tells a story that's parallel and kind of weaved within the films, which is what the best EU stories do. Let's be honest. Like, having these stories that are fun and engaging and adjacent, like, you get to, like, it feels like you're playing in the background of the movie. And episode 2 isn't my favorite movie, but getting to start out in the Battle of Geonosis in episode 2 is like that's when the clones arrive. So that's a pretty cool, parallel to the films, and a good way to like enter into the story here. And so yeah, you're in Delta Squad. You've got a squad of, I think, 4 or 5 elite trooper commandos, and you have a combination of obviously first-person shooter, so it's a shooter, and then also you command the other troops in your squad. So it's got a little bit of strategy, it looks like. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, I won't have a lot to say on each of these since I've not played them or not played them extensively enough to form an opinion, but I'm really looking forward to diving into Republic Commando at some point. Now let's get to number 4. All right, number 4 on my list of Star Wars games that are in my backlog is Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which was a PlayStation 2 game. If I would say the 90s were the strongest time period for EU, expanded universe publishing, all the novels and the comics, and the action figure and tie-in and everything. As gaming technology advanced in the 2000s, I think really interesting Star Wars EU stories were told in video games, and this looks like one of them. I guess another honorable mention would be the Jedi Knight series. That's a great set of games. Just didn't make this list, but I would also suggest, if you're a big EU fan, play the Jedi Knight series. Jedi Knight 1 and 2 are fantastic. So one of my favorite characters, even though he doesn't do much in the original trilogy, and I know that, is Boba Fett. And by extension, his father, Jango Fett, is pretty fucking rad too. And he's Jango Fett and Obi-Wan's duel and kind of cat and mouse is probably my favorite part of Star Wars Episode 2. And that movie as a whole is not my favorite, like I've said. But kind of interesting that two of my top 5 Star Wars games to play really tie into Episode 2 a lot. So this is a third-person action-adventure game that tells the story of Jango Fett as a Mandalorian bounty hunter. So it looks like it tells his backstory when he's in his bounty hunting prime. Because what we get of Jango Fett in Episode 2 is kind of a brief snippet. He has Zam Wessel do his dirty work on Coruscant in the opening scene, and primarily, his main involvement is being kind of a kept man on Camino as the template for the clone troopers, which is cool in itself, but he doesn't see too much action aside from the mini kind of battle that he has with Obi-Wan. And it's like, man, I want more of this. And it sounds like Star Wars Bounty Hunter does just that. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. I think it's going to bring out a lot of that prequel era nostalgia for me. So number 4, Star Wars Bounty Hunter. And let's get into number 3. All right. Hopefully you don't find these music clips too long. I mean, the music fucking rules. Obviously, like a lot of it is just lifted right from John Williams scores. Some of it is uses themes of and are based off of John Williams music. So it's all great. Number 3 is Star Wars Empire at War. This is an RTS game that I didn't know about until recently. This really flew under the radar for me. It came out in 2006, and I love RTS games. I grew up on these a lot, playing the family PC as a kid. Command and Conquer, Warcraft 2, StarCraft were all huge for me, and this is no exception. I'm really looking forward to getting into this. It looks like you get kind of a combination of that planet hopping style of Battlefront 2, and then the planetary bombardment. So there's space battles, there's surface battles. I love RTS games, and I don't get to play enough of them. I might be wrong, but I think my initial impression is that it's got that Battlefront feel. I already said that. That was in my notes again. I've got this loaded on a PC here at the Beagle's Nest, and I will for sure be playing this soon. I don't know if this will get an episode of the show, but I definitely will be playing this one. So that was number 3, Empire at War. Now on to number 2. Sorry if I let that music go a little bit long, but it's a good track. Number 2, if you can't tell from the music, was Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, obviously. After the smash success of Jedi Fallen Order, really made me want to get into Jedi Survivor almost right away. I didn't, but I do have it. I waited for it to go on sale, and I picked it up for PS5. I need to know what happens to Cal Kestis and my guy BD1. Everything I've heard is that this game does everything Fallen Order does, and then some. And if they're able to clean up some of the gripes I had with some of the gameplay in Fallen Order, this will be pretty much a perfect game. I did start playing it a couple weeks ago, and I really enjoyed the opening sequence. It was awesome. It had been a while since I played Fallen Order, but the combat, I was right back into it. The kills are fucking awesome. I actually think the combat flows even a little better I already noticed that the parry mechanic was much better and made it easier to decrease their, or like basically stun enemies and do finisher moves. So I'm all for it. Really enjoyed the first opening sequence and can't wait to get back to it. Really not much else to say, but again, give us more games like this. Number 2, Jedi Survivor. And here comes number 1. All right, and number 1 Star Wars game that I have not played and want to play. Some of you who've played this maybe have picked it up by the music. It is The Force Unleashed. This is one that if this game is 1A to KOTOR's 1B of games that Star Wars must plays from the 2000s, and I unfortunately missed out on this one also, but I wish I hadn't, because it, just reading up on the synopsis, it sounds fucking cool. I believe it's a third-person action game. This game, like Fallen Order and Survivor and Empire at War, I believe, all take place between Episode 3 and the original trilogy, and that is just a fertile ground for cool side stories. And you play as Darth Vader's secret apprentice? What the fuck? This is awesome. Like, I can't wait to get into this game. Shortly after stopping recording, I'm going to be heading over to my Switch and downloading it off the eShop. I just want to shut this podcast off right now and play it. But we're getting on towards an hour anyway, so we're about to wrap this up. But yes, hook this to my veins. I want this game. I want to play this game, and we are actually going to, if you don't know already, or you're not in our Discord, which you should be, or involved in our social media at all, which you should be, following us everywhere. This is going to be an upcoming episode. So we're going to have, this week is my top 5 Star Wars, which you're listening to right now. So thank you. And next week will be Crystallis for the NES. And that's kind of a little Switch Online game that we wanted to throw in there. Those are fun to go back to and take a look at. But after that, coming up in just a couple weeks, Star Wars Force Unleashed on Retrotopia, our first Star Wars game that we've covered, and this is promising to be a good one. This has been high on my list for a long time. I've really wanted to play this. I can't wait to do it. Alan's already started it. Brian's already started it. I've not started it. Why have I not started it? No excuses. So let's just let's wrap things up here. Get into my final thoughts. Way more games could have made this list, let's be honest, but they just didn't. I mentioned the what is it? Jedi Knight series, the PS2 games. Those are fucking awesome. Play those. A lot of fun. Great stories there. I gotta look this up because this almost made my list, but I was like, this game looks probably fucking terrible. Hold on, bear with me a second. Masters of Terraskazi, that fucking fighting game for the PlayStation. If I ever see a copy of this at my retro shop, I am picking it up, and be damned the price. I don't know how much it costs on the market, but it is 3D arena fighter fighting game. Just talk about a franchise that does not lend itself to fighting games. Whatever. I've heard it's terrible, but I can't wait. I want to give it a shot. But it did not make this list because I don't want to play it because it looks good. I want to play it because it looks terrible. So yeah, was there a game on this list that you were hoping to hear about and didn't? Well, why don't you write in? Join us on the Discord and tell us about it. That's linktree/Retrotopia. Get in our Discord. Find us on social media. Get in touch with us. Tell us all about what you love about the show. Give us your constructive feedback, too, if you'd like. But keep those ratings 5 stars if you can. It really helps us out. get out there and play some Star Wars games. All right, everyone, and may the Force be with you.